Yes, welcome back into UAP for episode number 170. Stephen Diener back with you here as always on the Unidentified Alien Podcast. And this should be a lot of fun today, actually. I've never, well, I shouldn't say never, maybe once or twice done an episode like this where I kind of just review, take a second to step back and remember some of the things that we just heard over the past couple of episodes. Now, I did do this once before when I spoke to Michael Herrera one time on a two-part episode, and there was just so much to comprehend, and I guess just bring all in together that I had to take an episode just to talk about that. But this time around, over the past three episodes with Avi Loeb most recently, and my two-part episode with Congressman Eric Burlison, I felt like it was warranted to kind of just go back and reflect a little bit on some of the things that we heard during those interviews. And I'm glad I did this, because even going back myself and listening to kind of, hear it again, take notes, there are some things in here that I didn't catch before, even when I was doing like my post-interview thoughts and things like that during the original episodes. So I think this hopefully will turn out well, and kind of just notice things that maybe we didn't realize the first time around. And it's important, I think, in this case, not to gloss over it all and just move on, which is why I wanted to do this. It's worth the time. A shout out to Experiencer. It goes by the handle of Experiencer on Twitter. They actually did a Twitter space on my behalf last week, and I felt really bad because I wanted to go in. It was last Saturday night, and they invited me to go in. They were going to do a Twitter space to do a deep dive into my interviews with Eric Burlison, and they let me know that. I said, great, cool, I'm going to try to drop in there for that Twitter space. And I fell asleep. It was like at 9:00 on Saturday. I don't know why. I never fall asleep that early, especially on a Saturday, but for whatever reason, I was just like dead to the world. So my apologies for missing that Twitter space. But I'll try to do something along those lines here today during this episode 170. Also, shout out to everybody watching on YouTube right now. Recording this episode for YouTube as well. I try to do that here and there. I thought this one might be a good opportunity to get that done. So if you want to check this out on YouTube, it's just me sitting here talking to you. So it's at UA Podcast on YouTube right there. Just search UAP Podcast and I should pop up. But kind of getting into it here, I want to jump in first and go to the most recent episode, which was with Avi Loeb. Now, of course, this was really concerning the 3I Atlas interstellar object. And it truly is the biggest question I get from people that I know, people that I work with, friends, family members. Everybody hears about this interstellar object and they all want to know. I was at a birthday party a couple weeks ago, and some of the parents there were like, oh, what do you think about this asteroid comet thing? What is that? So this is the one that really gets a lot of attention right now in the UFO topic. So I want to start there with what we heard from Avi Loeb and just kind of remember a few of the things that he had to say, starting with this. This really caught my attention and it has stuck with me ever since I spoke to him earlier in the week.
Most intriguingly, it deviated from the expected path. So there is some non-gravitational acceleration detected. And that could be a result of propulsion by some technological means, for example, thrusters that may give it some boost, or it could be pockets of ice on the surface of a rock that get evaporated. So you get this rocket effect from the evaporation of a comet, a natural object.
So the non-gravitational acceleration, and that was something that has really caught a lot of people's attention over the past week or so, that Avi and his team noticed as the object went around the sun and is now kind of like, shooting its way back towards Earth. And one of the things that he said also was, this isn't something that's going to land on the Earth. I think some people have a misconception on that. This isn't like something that's going to crash into the Earth or land as a mothership. It's going to be over 200 kilometers away from our planet here. But what he was saying during the episode was that his thing is, he's like, what if it's a mothership? What if it's a city size? Because remember, this thing is bigger than the city of Manhattan, or borough, I suppose. But it's bigger than Manhattan. And when you talk about something that large, whatever it is, whether it's just a massive comet or some type of interstellar, craft, it obviously raises eyebrows when you see something that big. So it's not like it would land on Earth. He says, what if it's a mothership and it deploys, smaller type of orbiters or drone ships or whatever it might be that come out of it as it gets closer to Earth. So that it's going to make its closest approach to Earth on December 19th, about a week before Christmas. That was one of the big takeaways there when it came to my interview with Avi Loeb, just about how, changing course, this non-gravitational acceleration, how and why is that happening? And you heard him kind of give those, I guess, possibilities as to what would be causing something like that. Still a lot of unanswered questions with this thing, including this one. And this really has been the one that has stuck with me. Are we looking at thrusters? What is happening here with 3i Atlas? Here's what Avi Loeb had to say about this thruster effect that they're noticing lately.
And most recently, just yesterday and today, there is a network of jets that are observed coming out of it, at least 7. And these jets are narrowly collimated. We're not talking about sort of a fuzz around it,
Right.
but actual collimated jets coming out of it. Now, again, it could be pockets of ice that generate a jet, or it could be thrusters.
All right. So, or it could be thrusters. Now, I mean, there's really only 2 choices, I suppose. Right now, the easy one is for us to say, well, it's obviously these pockets of ice that are shooting off these columns of, whatever it might be. If it's steam, if it's gas, well, I guess I don't know if it would be steam, but some type of gas that would be coming out of this comet, right? It goes by the sun. Maybe it starts to melt. It breaks apart into all these fragments. Avi was speaking about the possibility of that, which would increase the size of it. That would explain an increase in surface mass that he was talking about during our discussion. And if that's the case, then that would also explain this thruster effect where he's talking about these columns. Okay, it's not, and I think that was an important note that he made and that I really wanted to reflect on, was because I spoke about it with him. I wanted to follow up more, and I didn't get to follow up on that as much as I wanted to because we only had a short amount of time. I actually went like 15 minutes over with him. To be honest, I didn't really point that out in the first episode with him there that aired, but yeah, we went like 15 minutes over, and which was really cool of him to stick around because he had another interview right after me. So I apologize to anybody who was talking to Avi Loeb after me a few days ago. I didn't mean to make him late. It just, we got carried away with our conversation. So I didn't really get to follow up on this thruster question as much as I wanted to, unfortunately. But it's interesting to just kind of listen back to that and consider the possibilities. One being the easy possibility that it is some type of effect coming off of the comet after it passed the sun, or this is, again, some type of artificial object going through space, and now it's accelerating this non-gravitational acceleration. Okay, if you want to connect those dots to this thruster effect, at least 7 jets that they spoke about coming out from this object. So what is that? You heard him say it's either A or it's either B. It's either natural or it's either unnatural. I guess those questions remain to be seen, but it's an incredible observation. Nonetheless, again, easy answer. Yes, it's a comet. People always ask me, what do you think it is? I lean towards it being a comet just because, I mean, the other option is just absolutely incredible. Now, you never know, right? I don't know. I'm guessing just like everybody else. I'm just going along with what I've been hearing, what I've been learning. So we're going to learn, as this thing goes by. But another thing that happened during my discussion here with Avi Loeb, and this is the last piece I'll touch on before I move on to Eric Burlison and my 2 parts there with him. What stuck out to me was this question about why was it turning blue, or why is it appearing blue now? What does that mean? Kind of a long answer here from Avi, but I wanted to keep the whole thing in here because I thought it was important to reflect on.
In principle, hot objects are bluer if they are hotter. And the sun has a surface temperature of 5,800 degrees. So 3i Atlas, given its distance, should have been 20 times cooler and therefore redder than the sun. And moreover, if it's surrounded by dust, it would make it redder. So it's surprising for for us to see it bluer. And there are two possible interpretations. One, if there are molecules like carbon monoxide that emit in the blue band, maybe that's the reason for that blue color. Or maybe there is an engine which is hot, and that's why it gives us the blue color, or maybe some artificial lights emitted by the object. Who knows? So we just don't know the explanation. But once we will have spectroscopy, we will be able to tell what kind of blue light is it. Is it really spectral lines of some molecule, or is it emission from a hot surface?
So this blue light, what's causing that? The thruster effect, what's causing that? And the non-gravitational acceleration and the changing of the course, what's causing that? Those were the three big questions that I came away here from this interview with Avi Loeb, or I guess maybe the three big takeaways that remain to be seen, and things that we're going to find out and hopefully get definitive answers on as the coming weeks go on, as we get into, get past Thanksgiving, get into December, and we continue to get data on this thing as it starts, kind of hurtling closer and closer towards the trajectory of Earth. So those are the three main takeaways for me, and really just fascinating to consider. There was one other thing, and this is really just a note that I took up rather than, playing a clip from the episode. One of the notes I took here was a quote from Avi Loeb, because I asked him, why aren't more scientists taking this seriously? Is it just a matter of, to them, of like, it's not worth my time because it's obviously a comet? Or is it something that they just don't want to pay attention to because they don't want to be, thought of as, some type of kook, just in case, like maybe they really think it is something else, but they don't want to fall into the stigma, right? Why isn't anyone else taking at least the consideration of this might be something other than a comet, given all of its extremely unusual and in some cases unseen before characteristics, whether it's the composition of it, the makeup of it, what's coming off of it. I mean, the elements that are concerned with it, the size, the speed, the trajectory, how it's moved through the entire solar system, all the things that we've mentioned today, last week, and the past few months, at least should raise some flags for other scientists or astrophysicists to ask some questions. That's all I'm saying, and that's all I'm asking, and that's what Avi Loeb was asking too, because his answer was, and I wrote down this quote. His answer to that question was, people are appealing to what they already know. They are not willing to be imaginative. And I thought that was so, I thought it was such a perfect comment, really. I mean, maybe perfect is an overstatement, but I just thought it was so well said, and something that can really apply to a lot of this conversation, and why some people, whether they're skeptics or whoever that might be, prominent skeptics on social media, or anybody else, maybe someone in your family or friends, close circle, co-workers, or whoever it might be, where they are just unwilling to consider any of this stuff, and let alone 3i Atlas, but just any of the stuff having to do with the UFO topic. Abductions, sightings, other forms of life, interdimensional beings, interstellar travel, all these things that go along with it, the spiritual aspect of all this, how does all that connect? And I think when people see these stories and they see the videos or they see the pictures and they hear about all these things over the decades and the centuries, really, and they're still unwilling to be imaginative. They appeal to what they already know. And I thought that was just such an apt comment from Avi Loeb that I wanted to take that note and write it down directly in a quote. People are appealing to what they already know. They're unwilling to think outside the box, right? That's me putting my own spin on it. Unwilling to do that. Why? Is it fear? Is it, some sense of traditionalism? They don't want to kind of stray away from what they've learned over the years growing up. I don't know. Maybe people are afraid to just challenge their own system of how things go in the world and how things go in the universe. They just want to, keep it on the straight and narrow. They don't want to think about all the other stuff because it's too much. Now, for you and I, that's not the way we work. That's not the way we operate. That's not how we're built. We tick a different way. We want to ask these questions. We want to try to find out the answers. What does it all mean? How does it all connect to the everyday life that we live? but some people just want to appeal to what they already know. So by all means. But those were some of my big takeaways from my interview with Avi Loeb. And I hope you did enjoy that interview with him. Love talking to him. Really interesting guy, obviously. So I hope to have him back on maybe sometime right before the approach of Atlas, mid-December, or maybe sometime to start off the new year in 2026 as we kind of look back on what we learned from Atlas. Maybe that'll be the better bet. We'll see, because around Christmas time, things get kind of sketchy. Things get busy. Schedules get kind of wild. So maybe to start off 26, we'll have try to get Avi back on here and hopefully fit into his schedule. And thank you again to him for that. Again, another thing that I didn't say during the original episode, something that he told me off air. He said, and this just made me feel, honored that he was on, because he said, I'm getting hundreds and hundreds of emails a day, to the point where I'm just deleting things, and I'm like blocking requests from people that I don't know or don't recognize, whoever they are, whether it's a show or a journalist. He's like, I can't keep up with it. It's impossible. He's like, so I'm deleting most of the stuff that I get, unless it's somebody that I know or recognize. So that made I was honored to be kind of in that grouping of people that he knows and recognizes, and was willing to make time to come on here and talk about it for you, because that's why I do this, is so we can have this conversation, this back and forth together here on UAP. And that's what I did with Eric Burlison as well. And always am honored to talk to him, that he makes so much time to come on here on UAP. He's done it a handful of times now, which is awesome, and we'll definitely do again in the future. So what I want to do here, as we, kind of move on for this portion of the episode and get towards the end, because after Burlison, we'll wrap it up, and then I'll let you know what's coming up here on UAP. But I want to go over both parts here, and there were some clips that I saved and some notes that I wrote that I thought were really worthy of revisiting. The first one here was to kind of, again, not gloss over any of this stuff, because this world is just so quick. Things are moving at lightning pace, especially in the UFO topic. It's one thing to the next, and I just wanted to slow down and consider some of this stuff. I really thought that was important to do here today, and hopefully it's worth it for you and for everyone. Because there was a question here that I asked him, and he always gives an honest answer here on the show. I asked him, how involved is David Grush when it comes to what Eric is doing on investigating, talking to people, having these interviews behind the scenes, and how involved was he in the witnesses that recently testified on Capitol Hill, specifically Dylan Borland. Here's what Eric Burlison had to say. Was that somebody that David Grush kind of like personally recommended? Did he help you push for Dylan Borland?
Yes. David thought that Dylan was a credible witness, and he was at the top of his list. And so I was glad that we were able to get him up there.
So I think it's important to highlight that, because that shows how much, influence, of course, right? I mean, why else would you bring on somebody like David Grush? It shows how much influence he has over the conversation that's happening behind the scenes, how things are moving, what pieces are being placed where, as far as who's being spoken to, who's being put out front. So David Grush, confirmation there from Eric Burlison, is a very prominent part of the behind the scenes efforts to push this conversation forward. So some people speculate, and I wanted to highlight that. It sounds obvious, right? Because you think, well, why else would they bring him on? Of course, he's going to be a very integral part of this. But some people speculate negatively that Grush is there just for show. He's not really doing anything. That's not the case at all, according to what Eric Burlison said there when I asked him about, how involved was he when it came to specifically Dylan Borland, and the answer was, very involved. He really pushed for that. He was at the top of David Grush's list. So I thought that was very much worth highlighting there and bringing up again. Another thing here was, and this has been spoken about a lot. This clip was shared. I put this clip out on social media, and a lot of people spoke about this because it's important, and it's something that I think is going to have a lot of implications if and when it actually gets through. This is where Eric Burlison spoke about the effort to pass the UAP Disclosure Act. It didn't get through on the Defense Spending Act for 2026. So they're trying to, it didn't even make the floor. It didn't make legislation. They cut it out because they felt like it just wasn't worth consideration on the actual bill, unfortunately. So he wants a standalone bill now, and he's employed the help of one Danny Sheehan. Here's what he said about this. Let's take a look back at this one.
What if leadership pushed to get a standalone vote, or to bring the bill forward to get a standalone vote? Now, I think that they will do that if I can get out of committee. And so the question is, can I get it through committee? So I'm working with Danny Sheehan to craft a standalone bill, and one that we can hopefully get a committee to take up and pass.
I mean, it's huge. And obviously there's a lot of caveats there, right? It has to get to the floor. It has to get past the vote. It has to get past committee, as he put it. And it's got to be something that is actually palatable to the representatives who are voting on it. How much can they put in there as far as things that you and I would want to see in the UFO community when it comes to different acts that we want to see, or different details that we want to see disclosed on different stories, different projects? What are we going to be able to find out with this UAP Disclosure Act? And I'm glad that Danny Sheehan is a part of it. I mean, if anybody should be a part of something like that, it's someone like Danny Sheehan, who is a walking encyclopedia. You've heard him here on the show before and on many other shows. I mean, that dude literally is a walking encyclopedia of UFO lore. I mean, you got George Knapp and you got Danny Sheehan. Those to me are people that know everything just off the top of their head from like the past 100 years. It's incredible. So I'm glad personally, maybe you disagree, and that's totally fine. But just speaking to Danny on and off the air, I'm glad that he is involved with this with Eric Burlison. And hopefully this standalone bill will get consideration. It will pass the committee. It will go through. And it's something that we can look forward to, hopefully, when it comes to some type of disclosure act on the UAP front. They are shooting for 25 years. So whether that means by the time this passes, does that mean everything from 2001 through 2026 or through 2025 in that case gets revealed? Or do they get this passed before the end of the year and we get everything from 2000 on? So either way, like, I actually asked this question to Eric, and I didn't want to be critical. Whatever they can get, hopefully they get it. But I would really love to see something personally. This is just me speaking, from 80 years on, because that would cover Roswell. That takes us back before 1947. Whether we're going from 45 or 46, either way, we're going from before Roswell. And then everything else is in there over the past 80 years. I don't know how much we would learn about, military incidents like Malmstrom or anything like that. I mean, the Phoenix Lights, that's 1997. I mean, there's just so much in there. Now, Rendlesham, that's overseas, so I don't think we would get anything outside of the United States, but maybe they will. It depends on how it's written, because that was U.S. forces, just not stationed on, a U.S. base. But again, that's 1980. So you would have to do something that is going back significantly more than 25 years. It doesn't sound like they're pushing for that. Maybe they figure that there's just no way, so they want to try to get what they can get, which is kind of what Eric alluded to when I brought that up to him. So, that's just me being greedy, okay? I'm sorry. I can get greedy sometimes when it comes to this stuff. But if we can get a UAP Disclosure Act standalone bill that takes us back 25 years, then we'll take what we can get and then go from there. And I think that's kind of the goal there. So we shall see. Eric Burlison did give a timeline on that. I don't think they're going to be able to hold to that timeline, because he wanted to try to get it out before the release of the Age of Disclosure film, which, as I stand here today, it comes out next week on November 21st. So unless there's a miracle of some sort, now that the government is back up and running recently, maybe this is something that gets pushed through within the next 7 days. That seems unlikely to me, but I guess stranger things have happened. But we'll see whenever this gets to the committee floor, and hopefully gets pushed through at some point, because a UAP Disclosure Act would be a massive, massive step in the right direction for trying to push this conversation forward more and more. And I also, this stood out to me as well, and there's a few clips in here that stood out, obviously, from two parts with Eric Burlison, where it seemed like, and this is actually the first time I'm revealing this, because I wanted to be sensitive about this, and I didn't want to make it seem like I was throwing anybody under the bus. But I'm going to play this clip first, and I'll tell you why this is something that I haven't spoken about until now. And you and I both know we've spoken to different people who have seen the entire video and have been told that the object keeps going. It didn't fall into the water like some people would say a balloon. Oh, well, the balloon didn't fall into the water. If it was a balloon, it kept moving. All right, so that was me talking to Eric about the Hellfire missile video. As we all know what that is, right? Where it hits the object or seemingly hits the object and seemingly bounces off, keeps moving. And as I was framing the question, I was first framing it with telling of what I believe to be facts of the story from what were told to me by those with the knowledge of what is on that video. And the reason why I bring this up is because, again, revealing this for the first time, when I was saying that to Eric and talking to him about how, we've seen the rest of the video and the object keeps going, he seemed to be surprised when I told him that. I could be 100% incorrect. And Eric, if you're listening and I'm wrong about this, shoot me a text, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever it is. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. But I just want to give my honest read on the situation when I was saying this to him. It seemed like I caught him off guard. And it seemed like he kind of just wanted to, go along with the conversation and not stop me in my tracks and say, whoa, wait, what are you talking about? What do you mean it kept going and it didn't crash? Like, you've seen the rest of the video? Well, no, I haven't seen the rest of the video, but I have spoken to those who have seen the whole video. And that's what I was told, as I've said here before in the show numerous times. But it just seemed like I caught him off guard with that, which was interesting, because if that's the first time that he's hearing that it didn't crash and it did keep going, then I'm not sure why no one else has told him that. But that was just my read. Again, I could be 100% incorrect on that read, but that was the read when I got when I saw his reaction when I was telling him that. And I just wanted to put that out there because I hadn't before. But this was really interesting. And this is something that I didn't notice the first time around. This clip is a perfect example as to why I wanted to do an episode like this, because so much is said in these episodes and we so easily gloss over it, forget about it. There's so much to try to take in that it's impossible, truly impossible to take it all in one sitting. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to go back and listen to all the episodes over and over again. I mean, really, it's almost impossible to take it all in, especially with interviews like this. And this is a part that I didn't notice until I heard it for the third time as I was combing through to take notes. This part here, when Eric Burlison is talking about what the Pentagon has not acknowledged yet.
And then there's these three fragments that appear to be identical and that follow along with it is somewhat interesting. It could be easily explained, but at the end of the day, we also have not had the Pentagon or anyone come forward and say anything about the video. So they've not really acknowledged it.
See, and that's the part I missed. I missed that part the first time around, and even the second time around. The fact that he said the Pentagon did not acknowledge this video. And that's something that's, might be easily glossed over. And let's move on to the next question, next topic, next interview. But to think about the fact that this video came out, it's a real video. It really came off of a military network. I know this for a fact. And the fact that the Pentagon has not acknowledged this thing, what does that say? Does it say it's one of two things? One, it's plausible deniability, so just ignore it and let it go away, right? We don't want to talk about it because we can't talk about it, and just let it go away. And we'll slap somebody's wrist behind the scenes. Or two, it's so ridiculous to them that they don't even want to pay attention to it because it's not worth their time. I tend to go towards the latter. Okay, the first option there. That's just based off of my observations over the past month or so, past couple of months, really, since that video came out. But I just found that so intriguing when Eric said the Pentagon has not commented on that video. I found that quite incredible, actually. And I think that is because they can't comment on it. What are they going to say? that our missiles bounced off of some type of foreign object. This missile that is meant for heavy armored tanks to go through the armor, and it bounced off of this object and we were completely defenseless against it while running a separate mission. I mean, what is the Pentagon going to say, right? So that to me is why they haven't acknowledged it, because an acknowledgement of it would have to mean that this did happen, and one of our, strongest armor piercing weapons did nothing to it. And that's a big acknowledgement, and I don't think that's an acknowledgement that the Pentagon is willing to make. Also, I don't think they want to talk to these 50 whistleblowers. Yes, 50. This was a big revelation from Eric Burlison when I spoke to him.
There's a long list.
Hmm.
And for me, I've gathered a list of people from all the conversations that I've had with others, people that I need to get to at least reach out to. It's a long list. So it's in the probably 4 dozen range.
Wow. Yeah. So that came when I asked him how many whistleblowers or witnesses are out there behind the scenes that you've spoken to that we haven't seen publicly. And you heard him say they're close to 4 dozen. So, in that 48 to 50 range. And that was just staggering to me when he said that. And this clip went out on social media as well and got a lot of attention, and rightfully so, because we're talking about 4 dozen, let's call it 45 to 50 different witnesses / whistleblowers who have been on these different programs. Because I did ask him these specifics, and they include people who have worked on the special access programs in military members as well. So it's a mix of both, private contractors and things like that. So it's all the suspects, the usual suspects, not in a negative connotation, but the usual suspects that you would assume in those 3 categories. So when you think about that, and then you put it together with something else that he said that I believe got glossed over, and that's my fault, is that he wants to offer amnesty. Because I brought up the idea to him, well, what about the Whistleblower Protection Act? Is that something that would help out here? And he said, yes, absolutely. But what would also really help out is some type of amnesty. And that is, I think, a controversial term within the UFO community. There are some people, and this is just from what I've read from different, social media takes. So maybe I'm way off base here, because in a lot of cases, social media isn't real life. So maybe I'm way off base here. But from what I've read and some of the reactions that I've gauged within this conversation surrounding the idea of amnesty, there are people, a good number of people, who don't like that idea, because they want people who are aware of committing different crimes and perpetrating different crimes, continuing to do those crimes over years and in some cases decades. They want those people to pay a price. And I completely understand that, right? Who wants somebody to get away with something when they're doing something wrong? Especially in this case, when they are quite possibly, allegedly, part of the biggest cover-up in human history when it comes to the UFO topic, and keeping these things secret behind the scenes for whatever purpose you want to believe, whether that be money, military contracts, power, religion, whatever it is. George Knapp has spoken to this before, that a lot of people would go to jail if this whole thing ever really came out. And that's why Eric Burlison brought up the idea of offering some type of amnesty to the people who he says, and this is the point that he made, and I think this is important, the people who got roped into these things maybe weren't there originally, but are part of the program, and then come to find out that, oh, wait, this is bad. And now they're stuck. So maybe a situational amnesty is the solution here. Maybe instead of just a blanket amnesty for, you have 2 different categories, right? You have this category of people who know what they were doing and know what they started. And then you have this category of people who got into it, didn't know what it was. And then once they were in, it was too late. And now they're stuck, and they keep going and they keep going. And whatever crimes are being committed, they can't get out of it. Now, whether or not you think that's a fair excuse, I don't know. But it was just very interesting for me to hear Eric Burlison bring up the idea of amnesty for some of these people so they can come out and really say what they know without fear of having to go to jail. So, I mean, what do you think? Again, it's a very controversial idea. Are you for or against the idea of amnesty for different witnesses or whistleblowers in return for getting the truth? It's a tough call. Some people say no amnesty, give us the truth anyway. Some people say yes, we'll take it, fair trade. It's up to you. But I think that was something that was really worth bringing up again. This one too. This is another great example of something that got by me. I didn't catch this. Eric Burlison mentioned speaking to people who have captured UFOs. How did I not notice this before? Here's the clip.
I've had someone that has spoken about a craft that they encountered, in person in a small, confined environment. So that to me suggested that it was something that was captured.
So in translation, meaning he's spoken to somebody, and I'm not trying to put words in Eric Burlison's mouth, but this is just how I interpret it. I interpret it as I've spoken to somebody who has worked on UFO, UAP recovery, crash recoveries, and has been in the hangar and seen the reverse engineering programs going on and has seen this thing sitting there. So that told him that that's part of some type of crash recovery, a captured UFO. I mean, he said that right there on the show with me. He said that right here on UAP, that he has spoken to people who evidently were a part of some type of crash retrieval program and have actually been in the same room as one of these recovered craft. Think about that. I mean, again, I missed that the first and second time around. So I'm so glad that I'm doing this because that is a huge statement for him to make. A sitting congressman said right here on UAP that he's spoken to people who have been part of some type of recovery program and possibly been in the hangar with a recovered craft. I mean, incredible stuff. And it's my fault for not catching that before, but that's why I'm glad we're doing this instead of just rushing through to the next episode. And there is great stuff coming up here on UAP in the future, but I'm glad we're doing this today. This was something that absolutely stuck out to me as well. And there's a few more that I wanted to touch here before we were done. Threats. This is another reason why amnesty and whistleblower protection, especially, some type of protection, is something that is very important to these people who are not coming out in the public. Is these ideas of maybe your life is going to be threatened, maybe your livelihood is going to be threatened. Eric touches on both of those things when it comes to his own life and others' lives that he's heard about.
The other thing that's really kind of changed me and shaken me a little bit is the multiple conversations that I've had with people who have warned about the physical, negative potential ramifications. So threats to life, threats to your reputation, whether it's a financial, they can mess with you financially, they can mess with your online presence. Suddenly your laptop has, pornography on it that's criminal, things like that, right? I've heard of those kinds of things, and that's highly concerning to me and has caused me to try to take extra steps to be cautious.
Wow. Yeah, that's disturbing to say the least. Have you come across anything like that or like anything weird in your life where you said, like, is this someone going after me, or is this something you keep an eye out for?
It's something to keep an eye out for. Absolutely.
You've seen it happen to other people or just kind of heard the stories or?
Yes. And a couple of stories in particular that I don't want to go into. We've submitted a request to the FBI to investigate at least one event.
Wow. Was this to a fellow Congress member or someone who's trying to speak up?
Yeah, it was someone that was in, from what we were told, was a part of the legacy program that is no longer alive.
And that's how that's part of the conversation ended. I mean, heavy stuff there from Eric Burlison to consider, the things that he worries about, different threats, different possibilities that someone would try to plant things on his computer, just awful, repulsive things that he spoke about there, or just destroying his life financially, reputation, all these different aspects that he keeps in the back of his mind because of all the different stories that he's heard. And then, of course, bodily harm. He talks about something there at the very end. Someone has died, someone who is in the program. Now, that could have been by natural causes, but there is enough suspicion there by him and David Grush, by the way, that they're both suspicious enough to say this needs to be investigated. You're not going to the FBI if you don't think that there is something suspicious there. I mean, you have to be pretty sure that something, might have been some foul play afoot for you to actually take the time to say, yeah, we're going to go to the FBI on this. So that's scary stuff. And that's another reason why whistleblowers and witnesses don't want to come out. There's a lot that they deal with. There's a lot of silent suffering there that, doesn't get spoken about on shows or on the public, whatever it is. But these are things that, are very, very real possibilities and threats. And you heard Eric Burlison say it there. It's scary stuff. So how do you handle that? That's the question. Is it with a Protection Act? Is it with some type of amnesty? How do you get by these types of threats from the people behind the scenes? It's awful. And it's something that continues to plague this conversation and trying to reach the truth. But one way you could do that is by actually seeing the biologics, seeing the bodies, seeing anything that's been recovered. And Eric Burlison wants to try to do that with the Vice President, J.D. Vance. This was another clip I put out on social media that really got a lot of attention in for good reason, because he wants to try to get in to see the goods, and he wants to take Vance with him.
The problem that we're facing is that unless we get the White House to kind of move in our direction, we're probably not going to get access to these locations. And so I've made a request to the White House to be able to go visit some of these locations and actually see the goods. I made a request that JD Vance go with that we go together.
Yeah.
After some of these interviews that have occurred, it's clear that he does have an appetite to look into this.
Right.
He's kind of like where Trump is. It's not the top of his priority list, but hey, I'll take it. I'll take any kind of interest and the kind of the doors that a JD Vance can open. And so my staff are reaching out. They're repeatedly requesting that we work together on this. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
That to me was probably the most, well, I shouldn't say the most because there's a lot, but that was one that really, really, really stuck with me about the possibility of Eric Burlison and JD Vance working together on this. I'm going to have to keep up with that one with Eric and see how that request gets handled, moving through to the holidays and maybe into next year, early on next year, if that request is met with either a yes or a no, but at least to find out how that's been handled. And these requests that he's putting in to see the goods, as he puts it, and possibly taking the Vice President, J.D. Vance, along with him. Incredible stuff there from Eric Burlison. And maybe that is the future of what he's trying to do, because in this last clip that I wanted to touch on and just, really kind of bring back out there for consideration, it doesn't sound like any more hearings are the most important thing for Eric Burlison and the committee right now. Here's what he had to say. I asked him about that. What are the future plans? Do you want to do more hearings? What's important to you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at this point. I think we've had quite a few hearings. It's not as much of a goal of mine to have to just to have a hearing, just to have one. Right now, I feel like we're at kind of a new chapter where we're saying, okay, what next? What can we? And so, in some ways, I'm waiting for people to reach out to me. I'm waiting for new information for new whistleblowers. And until we get people that are voluntarily going to come forward, that's where I kind of go back to, we have an effort to try to reach out to some of these people that we know at some point were at least adjacent to the legacy program. And so that's kind of the behind the scenes efforts that are occurring.
Yeah, and I think that's going to continue to move forward in that type of direction, along with the UAP Disclosure Act, what they're trying to do there with the standalone bill, along with trying to get access to these different sites and different biologics. There's a lot that Eric Burlison and his team and the task force are trying to work on still to make these things happen. And I'm going to continue to ask the questions and try to provide you with the answers with all these things, because this conversation is very far from being over. But I'm glad that we can at least look back on some of these main highlights, these main points from these past episodes, to really kind of put it all into perspective before moving on to the next topic, and just kind of hold this for now and revisit it later, because these are important things that I think are going to come up again. Doesn't sound like a future hearing is going to be one of those things, but you heard those different goals there from Eric on what he wants to try to do in the future, especially one that actually caught my ear that I hadn't really heard before, that he's also waiting for people to reach out to him. And I think that's really interesting. And so if you're out there and you're listening and you do have, something that you need to get across to Congress, you're a veteran, you're a whistleblower, whatever it might be, reach out to Eric Burlison's office. He's waiting for people to get in touch with him who are in these positions, like the Dylan Borlins, like the Matt Browns, like David Grush, and all these different people that we've seen, Jeff Nusatelli, all these different people who have come out to speak about their experiences. Reach out to Eric Burlison, to your local Congress member, to somebody, whether it's in your district or not, so that way these things can be handled in hopefully the proper way, which they have been so far, in my opinion, as we've gone on and seen how this has been handled in Washington, D.C. over the past couple of years. So really glad that we got to do this today, to just kind of sit back and reflect on some of these things before moving on to the next topics. And I hope that you got something out of it as well. I know I did. So I'm glad it worked out. Coming up next here on UAP to look forward to in the future, I'll try to get some more best ofs out of there, as well as some greatest hits. I always try to put some of those out, so keep an eye out for those greatest hits episodes as well, to try to put out some of those episodes I've done in the past, maybe forgotten about, bring them back to the forefront. Always like doing that here and there. But more importantly, maybe, is my interview coming up with Jordan Crowder. Jordan Crowder is somebody I mentioned in my previous episode with Avi Loeb. Can't wait to talk to him to start off the week next week. Just really a fascinating guy when it comes to the UFO topic, how it connects to spirituality, consciousness. He has his own podcast that he does on YouTube, I believe. So Jordan, he has a huge following on social media. So if you don't know who Jordan Crowder is, and you want to see some of his stuff, just go onto social media and search Jordan Crowder. I'm sure you'll find him. He's got a long beard, young guy, if you don't know who he is. And I'm looking forward to speaking with him early on next week, because I've been following his material for a couple of years just personally. And I think it's going to be a really, really fun conversation that we're going to have here in the coming days. So stay tuned for that and so much more on UAP. Be sure you continue to download the show, subscribe if you haven't to UAP and to UAP Investigates, because that will be coming out soon. I promise. I'll keep you updated on the exact date, but soon UAP Investigates will come out. So be an early subscriber to that, so you're ready to go once UAP Investigates begins. But for UAP, just search it anywhere you get your podcasts. Same with UAP Investigates on all the major platforms. Search it out, become a subscriber, and that way you get all the episodes as they come out. And you can send me a message on social media or through email. The email is sdieneruap@gmail.com. That's sdieneruap@gmail.com. And follow along on social media, Twitter, TikTok, at UA Podcast 850. You can just follow what's going on or send me direct messages there. I always, get back to everybody. And shout out to everybody on YouTube as well. If you want to follow UA Podcast on YouTube, you can see this entire episode. I was able to put this one on YouTube today, so hopefully you get to check this out as well. It's me talking to you right here in the studio, so if you want to see the visual, you can check it out on YouTube. I try to get more and more things out on YouTube as I go along. So that's going to do it for now here on UAP for episode 170. Thank you so much, as always, for continuing to join the show, to come back. Without you, there is no UAP, so I truly, truly appreciate it. So on that note, thank you again for everything, for all the support. And until next time, it's Stephen Diener right here saying be well. Thanks so much again. We'll talk again soon right here on UAP, the Unidentified Alien Podcast. Thanks. That'll do it. Thanks, guys, for the coming in here to YouTube to see the behind the scenes edition here in the studio for UAP for this new episode. Always appreciate you stopping by, and keep an eye out for all the different videos, all the things I'm going to try to put up here in the near future. So to everybody on YouTube, thanks a lot. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.